Welcome to the channel, subscribe and stay up to date with new anime titles. A young girl on an island waits eagerly for her parents to return. When they arrive, they bring with them a newborn baby. The mother tells her daughter Mary to welcome her new little brother, Cheyenne. Joy lights up Mary's face as she kisses her brother in greeting, leaving him surprised. She introduces herself saying, "Welcome Cheyenne, I'm your big sister," which brings a cheerful expression to his face. 3 years pass, and Mary is seen running energetically, declaring that she has won the race. Cheyenne, exhausted from the competition, remarks on how fast she is. Mary proudly responds, "Of course I'm fast. After all, I'm the big sister." Their father arrives and Mary greets him warmly. Her father affectionately tells her that she is as bright as ever. Cheyenne also greets his father, who praises him for being reliable. However, Cheyenne modestly insists that Mary is the trustworthy one. Mary agrees playfully, but secretly thinks to herself that Cheyenne is truly dependable. She admires how he helps their mother, no longer wets his bed, and sometimes even appears deep in thought like an adult, which sparks a bit of envy in her. Later, Cheyenne is seen chanting some magical incantations. Mary assumes he is rehearsing for a play and laughs at the memories of her younger brother. At dinner, during a quiet moment, Cheyenne suddenly asks their father if monsters are real. The father is surprised by the question but confirms that monsters do exist. He warns Cheyenne never to leave the island, emphasizing that his mother must have already told him about the deadly and dangerous nature of these creatures. If Cheyenne ever encounters a monster, he should run and seek help from an adult. Cheyenne then asks if spirits and fairies are real. The father admits he knows fairies exist, but has no knowledge about spirits. Mary is visibly shocked by the conversation, her face showing signs of amazement. Cheyenne proceeds to inquire about the existence of magic, specifically the ability to manipulate elements like water, fire, and air to create something. The father, puzzled, responds that he has never even heard of such a thing as magic. Mary feels a pang of sadness seeing Cheyenne's disappointment upon hearing this. Cheyenne, however, persists and wonders aloud if magic might exist even if his father hasn't heard of it. The father acknowledged that it was possible for magic to exist, but he added that he was a well-educated man with extensive knowledge. Based on what he knew, magic wasn't something commonly recognized among ordinary people. He then asked Cheyenne where he had learned about monsters, fairies, and magic. Cheyenne remained silent, seemingly unwilling to answer. His sister, Mary, approached him and asked if he was all right. Noticing how pale he looked, Cheyenne reassured her that he was fine, but he appeared deeply shocked and saddened. From that moment on, he never mentioned the word magic again. 3 years later, Mary was seen training with a wooden sword, while Cheyenne watched her with pride. After finishing her training, Mary sat beside him to rest. Cheyenne asked her why she was training so hard. Mary replied that as his elder sister she wanted to be prepared in case something happened, so she could protect him. Cheyenne asked what she was protecting him from. She explained it could be from monsters, spirits, or any other threats. Mary reassured him, saying it was her duty as his big sister. She admitted that while it was sometimes difficult for her, she enjoyed it because it made her stronger and capable of safeguarding him. Mary added that although she wasn't very smart, she excelled in physical activities. Cheyenne finally understood why his sister had been training so diligently all this time. As night fell, Mary continued her training. A friend of hers arrived and commented on how long Mary had been practicing. Surprised that she hadn't grown bored, Mary dismissed her friend's remarks and invited her to spar. Her friend declined, saying she was too tired from helping her grandfather. The friend then asked about Cheyenne, wondering if he was still staying home and studying as usual. Mary confirmed this, and her friend remarked on how different the siblings were. Mary reflected on the past when Cheyenne had asked about magic and felt certain that his continued studies were tied to those questions. Suddenly, a light appeared over the lake, leaving both Mary and her friend stunned. The next day, Mary brought Cheyenne with her to the lake. Cheyenne hesitated, reminding her that their mother had warned them not to wander too far. Mary reassured him, saying the location wasn't far and that there were no monsters around. As night began to fall, Cheyenne reminded his sister that their mother would be upset. Mary acknowledged this but told him the wait would be worth it. Just then, the lights appeared again. Surprising Cheyenne, Mary explained that these glowing orbs always appeared after sunset, but she didn't know why. Cheyenne curiously asked Mary if their parents knew about the glowing lights over the lake. Mary explained that she had shown the lights to their parents when she first saw them, but surprisingly, they couldn't see anything. She confessed that she had worried Cheyenne might not be able to see them either. Cheyenne speculated that perhaps only children could see the lights, but Mary disagreed. She explained that some children couldn't see the lights at all, while some adults could. Additionally, some people saw the lights as fully formed orbs, while others, like her, only saw them flicker and fade. Cheyenne found this mystery deeply intriguing. Mary agreed, remarking on how peculiar the phenomenon was. Comparing it to magic, she reminded Cheyenne of his earlier idea about creating things with light, and how she had felt discouraged when their father dismissed the idea. Cheyenne, surprised that Mary remembered, listened as she told him that although her memory wasn't great, she always remembered the things that were important to him. Cheyenne, touched by her words, seemed on the verge of tears. Mary reassured him, suggesting they head back home. Cheyenne thanked her for everything she had done for him. Mary smiled, telling him she didn't do it for gratitude, but because she wanted to see him happy and feeling better. When she asked if he felt better now, Cheyenne responded with an enthusiastic confirmation. The next morning, Mary and Cheyenne hurried through breakfast, surprising their parents with how quickly they finished eating. They rushed outside carrying buckets and headed back to the lake. Cheyenne's exhaustion was evident, prompting Mary to tease him about his lack of exercise and outdoor activity. Cheyenne, too tired to argue, focused instead on their mission. Mary asked what they planned to do next, and Cheyenne explained his desire to investigate the glowing orbs, further to uncover their origin. Mary suggested they might simply come from the lake itself, but Cheyenne countered that the lights could also be emanating from something inside the lake. He insisted they needed to dig deeper to uncover the truth. Mary admitted she didn't fully understand but expressed her trust in Cheyenne's instincts, eager to help him unravel the mystery. Mary, curious about their next step, asked Cheyenne what they needed to do. Cheyenne laid out his plan. They had 3 buckets. The first would be filled with water, rocks, and sand, the second with water and plants, and the third with water and fish. Mary, though not entirely understanding his reasoning, agreed to follow his instructions. Working together, they quickly filled the first 2 buckets. Catching fish for the third, however, proved more challenging. While trying to net a fish, Cheyenne suddenly laughed, catching Mary's attention. When she asked why, Cheyenne shared his joy at having her by his side and thanked her for helping him. Mary reassured him, reminding him that as his older sister, it was her responsibility to assist him. She added with a playful tone that she had free time, so she insisted on joining him, and admitted her curiosity. If magic did exist, she wanted to see it for herself. Cheyenne promised that if he ever discovered magic was real, she would be the first to know. Finally, Mary managed to catch a fish, and they carefully placed it into the bucket. As they observed the fish swimming inside, Mary's friend Rose appeared. Spotting Cheyenne, Rose asked if he was Mary's younger brother. Mary confirmed it, introducing Cheyenne to Rose. Cheyenne greeted her politely, and Rose introduced herself with pride. Mary, rolling her eyes at Rose's demeanor, told Cheyenne not to pay attention to her boasting, dismissing her as just an ordinary girl. Offended, Rose objected to Mary's bluntness and asked what they were doing. Mary explained they were fishing, but Rose pressed further, curious why they had chosen this particular lake. Mary replied that Cheyenne knew the reason. When Rose asked if it was because of the glowing orbs, Cheyenne confirmed her suspicion. Rose admitted that she too often visited the lake, drawn by a fascination with the glowing lights. When Cheyenne asked if she had any information about them, Rose confessed that she simply enjoyed watching the orbs and didn't know much about their origin. As the sun began to set, the glowing orbs reappeared over the lake, but they didn't emerge from the buckets they had prepared. Cheyenne theorized that the lights must be coming from something else in the water. Rose commented on how challenging it would be to uncover everything living in the lake, but Cheyenne, determined to investigate further, decided to dive in. Mary joined him, eager to help. In the water, Cheyenne managed to catch one of the glowing orbs, marveling at how warm it felt in his hands. Mary followed his lead, grasping one of the lights herself. However, when Cheyenne attempted to submerge his head to find the source of the orbs, the lake's dark waters made it impossible to see anything clearly. Based on his observations, Cheyenne concluded that the glowing orbs must be linked to a living creature, as their changing locations suggested movement. When Mary asked how he could be sure, Cheyenne explained his reasoning about the orb's mobility. They eventually left the water, with Cheyenne expressing his gratitude to Mary for her help. Mary dismissed his thanks, reminding him that helping him was part of being family. Not long after, Rose managed to catch another fish, a female this time, noting how difficult it was since female fish tended to stay in deeper waters. When they placed the female fish in the bucket alongside the male fish, glowing orbs began to appear in the water. Cheyenne stared at the scene, suddenly realizing the truth. The glowing orbs were connected to the courtship behavior of the fish. Curious, Mary asked what courtship meant. Rose explained that it was how male fish express their feelings to female fish as part of starting a family. Mary, in her innocent and heartfelt way, declared that she would marry Cheyenne when they grew up. Cheyenne, however, became visibly upset and firmly explained that siblings couldn't marry. The next day, Mary was troubled after their mother scolded her for saying she wanted to marry Cheyenne. She turned to him, seeking reassurance, and asked if her words were truly wrong. She explained that all she wanted was to stay with him forever. Cheyenne comforted her, gently explaining that they didn't need to marry to remain together. They were already family. However, Mary voiced her concern, pointing out that someday they would marry other people and inevitably go their separate ways. Determined, Cheyenne promised her that he would never do that and vowed to stay by her side forever. Mary, though skeptical about how difficult that might be, was deeply moved by his insistence. Cheyenne assured her that he would keep his promise because she was incredibly important to him, and he hugged her tightly. Mary, overwhelmed by his words, began to cry. In that moment, Cheyenne's body suddenly began to emit a glowing light. He exclaimed in amazement, theorizing that the magical energy from the glowing orbs they had touched had somehow imprinted itself on him. He explained that the intense bond and his heartfelt declaration of never leaving her were so powerful that they triggered this magical reaction. Embarrassed and unable to process the overwhelming situation, Mary ran off in a flustered state. As Cheyenne reflected on the extraordinary event, he came to a profound conclusion. Magic didn't yet exist in their world because no one had discovered the means to create it. Fueled by determination, Cheyenne vowed that in this world where he had been reborn, he would be the one to create magic and bring it to life. The story flashes back to Cheyenne's previous life, where he eagerly awaited his 30th birthday. With only 10 seconds left until he reached this milestone, he was filled with excitement, believing in the legend that men who remained virgins until 30 would gain the ability to use magic. As the countdown ended, Cheyenne jumped with joy, declaring that he would finally confirm it for himself. He attempted to conjure a fireball from his hand, but nothing happened. Frustrated, he tried other magical gestures, but again, there was no result. Overwhelmed by despair, he collapsed to the ground, only to rise again and pick up a magic book. He recited some incantations, hoping to unlock magical powers, but once more, nothing happened. Defeated, Cheyenne slumped down, muttering that magic didn't exist in this world and lamenting how dull life was without it. Resigned, Cheyenne decided to go to sleep since he had work the next day. However, as he prepared to rest, his heart suddenly stopped and he collapsed to the floor. Moments before taking his last breath, memories from his past life flooded his mind. He recalled how, as an ordinary man, he had strived to learn and grow, yet never felt true happiness. The only thing that had ever brought him joy was the belief in the possibility of gaining magical powers. 30. It seemed impossible, but the thrill of trying had driven him forward. With these thoughts, his consciousness faded, only to awaken in his new life. Back in the present, Cheyenne remembered his conversation with his father, which had left him disheartened about the absence of magic in this world. Determined not to dwell on magic again, Cheyenne resolved to focus on studying and working hard. Yet, in this second life, his dreams seemed to be slipping away once more, until the moment he embraced his sister and the magical energy emerged from within him. Motivated, Cheyenne tried again to summon a fireball, but nothing happened. Realizing he needed to be cautious, he decided not to assume magic existed in this world without further evidence. At that moment, Mary entered the room. Cheyenne greeted her warmly, saying, "You came at the perfect time. Sit with me." Mary explained that she had come to tell him dinner was ready and invited him to eat with her, but she agreed to stay for a moment. As she sat down, Cheyenne began staring at her, causing Mary to feel embarrassed. Cheyenne looked at his sister and said, "I love you," which made her even more embarrassed. At that moment, magical energy surged out of him as he had anticipated. However, he muttered to himself that if expressing his emotions was the only way to release this energy, it would be a ridiculous limitation. Mary, visibly upset, interrupted him and accused him of treating her like a puppet for his own benefit. Cheyenne tried to explain, but she didn't believe him, accusing him of lying. He insisted that he was being honest and that his feelings were genuine, which once again made her blush. Cheyenne was surprised by her reaction, and Mary eventually forgave him, though she warned him not to repeat such behavior. She then asked if he had discovered anything new. Cheyenne explained that the magical energy was released when he expressed his emotions, but doubted this was the only way it could be triggered. Determined to test another method, Cheyenne decided to focus on happy memories to evoke joyful feelings. He closed his eyes and thought of things that brought him happiness. As he did, the magical energy began to flow out of him again. Both he and Mary were thrilled by the discovery. Mary exclaimed that even if all he could do was glow, it was still amazing. Cheyenne silently agreed with her, thinking that even if it was just glowing, he had proven to himself that magic existed in this world. He described the release of the energy by comparing it to an electric eel generating a current. His face lit up with a foolishly happy expression, overwhelmed by the excitement of his breakthrough. Mary was overjoyed for him and gently patted his head, expressing how glad she was to see him this happy for the first time. Cheyenne looked at her and said, "I truly am very happy." Cheyenne sat down and began piecing together his understanding of magic. He realized several key points. First, expressing his emotions allowed him to release magical energy, but maintaining those emotions would be incredibly challenging. Second, he could only perform this action a limited number of times because once his energy was depleted, he became completely exhausted and unable to do anything further. The third and most important discovery was that fully exhausting his magical reserves caused them to grow, increasing his capacity for energy the next time. Lastly, he understood that people without the ability to use magic could neither see the glowing energy nor sense its warmth, whereas those with magical potential could feel and recognize it. Despite these insights, Cheyenne grew frustrated because he still couldn't generate glowing orbs, and didn't know why. He theorized that his current magical reserves were too small, which prevented him from creating them. This realization left him feeling disheartened, especially when he compared himself to the fish, which seemed to have more magical energy than he did, allowing it to produce the glowing orbs effortlessly. Cheyenne sat in deep thought, trying to figure out how to increase his magical power. As he molded over, he felt tension building, eventually hitting a mental roadblock. Yet he refused to give up. Determined, he declared to himself, "I've come this far. I won't give up until I figure out how to use magic." Cheyenne reflected on his earlier experiment with the fish and realized something significant. Determined to apply this insight, he released his magical energy and tried to focus it entirely into his hand. However, the effort was far more difficult than he had anticipated. Attempting to think about emotional triggers while simultaneously directing the magic was like trying to split his mind into two different tasks at once, a nearly impossible challenge. After some frustration, Cheyenne recognized his mistake. He had been approaching the process in the wrong order. With a new strategy, he concentrated first on channeling the magical energy and then directing it into his hand. This time, he succeeded, and a triumphant, goofy smile spread across his face. Encouraged by his small victory, he decided to test the energy's potential by striking the wall with his glowing hand. Unfortunately, the result was underwhelming. His hand emitted only a faint light, and the impact left him injured. Despite this setback, Cheyenne was thrilled. To him, this small breakthrough was an important step forward in his journey to master magic. His excitement reignited his determination to continue training and experimenting. Later, Cheyenne joined his father, sister Mary, and their friend Rose in the garden for swordsmanship training under his father's guidance. When asked to participate, Cheyenne expressed his reluctance, explaining that he had no desire to fight anyone and didn't see the point of learning swordsmanship. His father patiently explained that the training wasn't just about fighting people. It was a crucial skill for defending oneself against the monsters that lived outside the safety of the city. Rose eagerly added that she wanted to learn swordsmanship to protect herself, inspiring Mary to feel enthusiastic about the training as well. Cheyenne, however, remained disheartened. While he understood their reasons, he couldn't help but wish he could spend his time training in magic instead. As the training session continued, Cheyenne was seen lying flat on the ground, utterly exhausted. His father observed his performance with a mix of disappointment and amusement, remarking that he hadn't expected Cheyenne to be so inept at swordsmanship. Cheyenne, too tired to argue, agreed with him. Meanwhile, Rose received praise from Cheyenne's father for her natural talent, which further highlighted the contrast between her skill and Cheyenne's struggles. Turning his attention to Mary, Cheyenne's father asked to see how much she had improved. Mary prepared herself with enthusiasm, eagerly stepping forward for a sparring match. She launched a quick and energetic attack, surprising everyone with her speed and precision. At one point, she attempted a clever feint, but her father anticipated the move and countered it, ultimately defeating her. Though disappointed by her loss, Mary accepted her father's feedback graciously. He praised her determination and skills, offering advice on how she could improve further. He assured her that with a few more years of practice, she would become highly proficient. Cheyenne and Rose watched with admiration, impressed by Mary's progress and her relentless drive to improve. Later, Cheyenne resumed his magic training, focusing intently on channeling all his magical energy through his hand. Despite his best efforts, he failed again, and his frustration grew. Reflecting on his progress, he acknowledged that while he had made significant strides, initially being able to release his energy only twice a day and now managing up to 20 times, he had reached a plateau. Realizing that further improvement required refining his technique, Cheyenne resolved to find a better approach. While deep in thought, Cheyenne's father approached him and mentioned that he would be traveling to the city of Astoria to visit a blacksmith for supplies. He invited Cheyenne to join him, and Cheyenne, eager for a change of scenery, enthusiastically agreed. Astoria was described as a mid-sized city in their region, offering new opportunities and experiences. Upon arriving in Astoria, Cheyenne's father explained their purpose: to pick up supplies from a local blacksmith. He warned Cheyenne not to wander too far, cautioning him about the risk of getting lost in the unfamiliar city. Cheyenne, excited by the bustling streets and vibrant atmosphere, felt a twinge of disappointment. He had hoped the trip would lead to opportunities to explore magical knowledge, but for now, he focused on accompanying his father and assisting with their errands. As they moved through the city, they began purchasing the necessary items. As their father spoke with a vendor, Cheyenne and Mary waited outside. Mary suddenly let out a strange laugh, catching Cheyenne off guard. When he asked her about it, Mary brushed it off with a shrug, claiming she always laughed like that. Cheyenne, still puzzled, decided not to press further. Shortly after, their father returned and announced it was time to visit the blacksmith. At the blacksmith's shop, they were warmly greeted by the blacksmith, an old friend of Cheyenne's father. The blacksmith immediately guessed the purpose of their visit, noting that Cheyenne's father must be there to collect his order. When this was confirmed, the blacksmith proudly revealed that he had crafted a high-quality sword specifically for Mary. Stunned by the revelation, Mary stared at the blacksmith in disbelief. Introducing himself to Cheyenne and Mary, the blacksmith was impressed by their politeness. Jokingly, he remarked to their father, "These kids are so well-mannered, I doubt they're really yours." Cheyenne's father laughed and pretended to threaten him, causing the blacksmith to chuckle as he dodged and went to retrieve Mary's sword. When the blacksmith returned, he handed the sword to Mary, explaining that he had designed it to be shorter and lighter, ensuring it was perfectly suited for her. Mary's eyes lit up with awe and excitement as she admired the weapon, marveling at its craftsmanship. Her joy was evident, but as they prepared to leave, a hint of sadness crossed her face. Turning to Cheyenne, she said, "I'm the only one who received something and you didn't. I feel bad about that." Cheyenne reassured her with a gentle smile, explaining that the sword was also a birthday gift for her and that he had no interest in owning a sword. Mary, however, grew frustrated. "You should have received something too," she insisted. "You need to be more selfish." Cheyenne smiled again and replied, "I am selfish. I ask for your help with so many things." His response seemed to ease Mary's frustration, and they continued walking together. As they strolled through the bustling streets of Astoria, Cheyenne's attention was caught by a boy standing nearby with a cage that held a fairy. Intrigued, he pointed it out to his father. However, his father's expression immediately darkened, and he sternly warned Cheyenne not to approach that place or involve himself in anything related to it. Realizing he had upset his father, Cheyenne quickly apologized, explaining that he had only been curious. Despite his father's warning, Cheyenne couldn't shake what he had seen. In his mind, he was certain this was a place where fairies were being sold. On the following day, a man was walking through the forest under heavy rain. He muttered to himself about needing to return home quickly before the firewood got wet and ruined. Suddenly, a young boy came running toward him, terrified, and collapsed on the ground. Gasping for breath, the boy said, "They've taken everyone. I must inform the king." The man, alarmed, asked who had attacked them. The boy replied in a trembling voice, "The trolls. They've taken everyone." Fear struck the man upon hearing this. Elsewhere, Cheyenne and Mary continued their training. Cheyenne was practicing maintaining his magical energy in his hand. Mary was delighted to see that he had achieved a new personal record. Cheyenne thanked Mary, attributing his progress to her help. However, Mary noticed he didn't look happy and asked why. Cheyenne reassured her, saying he was very happy because he could now control his magic better than before. Still, he downplayed the achievement, pointing out that all he could do was produce light. Mary encouraged him, saying the light he emitted felt warmer than before. Jokingly, she called his magic just light and nothing more, which made Cheyenne laugh. Cheyenne remarked that he wanted to try something more exciting, like creating fireballs or using lightning. He theorized that he could achieve this by better understanding how emotions connect to magic. His thoughts drifted to the fairy he had seen the previous day, contemplating how fairies seem to function as part of natural phenomena. He understood why his parents disapproved of dealing with them, but before he could think further, Mary interrupted him, annoyed at being ignored. She seemed upset, and Cheyenne quickly turned his attention back to her. Suddenly, a commotion arose downstairs. Cheyenne and Mary went to investigate and found several people talking to their father. The group was requesting weapons for everyone. Cheyenne's curiosity was piqued, and he asked his father if something was wrong. His father confirmed the news. Trolls had appeared. Cheyenne was thrilled by the idea, seeing it as an opportunity to study the trolls and perhaps learn something that could advance his magical abilities. However, the tense atmosphere quickly reminded him of the danger. He began to understand that trolls were formidable and dangerous foes in this world. Cheyenne's father instructed the townspeople to gather all the elderly, women, and children in his home, leaving only the able-bodied to prepare for battle. Mary tried to reassure Cheyenne, but her trembling hand betrayed her fear. She vowed to protect him if anything happened. Cheyenne's father and the group of warriors prepared to leave for the battle, trying to calm their families. He assured everyone that only 2 trolls had appeared and that they would deal with them quickly. Cheyenne attempted to speak with his father before he left, but his father said he had no time for a lengthy conversation. Cheyenne insisted, promising to be brief, and asked if trolls had intelligence and enough physical strength to reach the 2nd floor of their home. His father replied that trolls were dumb and wouldn't be able to do so. Cheyenne proposed that everyone should hide on the 2nd floor, where they would be safe if the trolls arrived. His father agreed, and instructed them to act on Cheyenne's suggestion immediately. The villagers gathered on the 2nd floor with Cheyenne's family. Cheyenne anxiously wondered how much time had passed since his father and the warriors had left to confront the trolls. The storm outside raged on and the tense atmosphere only deepened. Suddenly one of the trolls reached Cheyenne's house. It peered into the empty basement, searching for people but found no one. Frustrated, the troll began smashing the front door, the sound echoing through the house. Cheyenne and the villagers froze in fear. Moments later, the noise stopped, and they hoped the troll had left. But then, the shattering sound of a window breaking dashed their hopes. The troll had found another way in. Mary, trembling, whispered to Cheyenne, asking if the troll could reach them. Cheyenne urged her to remain silent, warning that any noise might attract it. The troll began climbing to the 2nd floor, stopping outside the door, to the room where they were hiding. Everyone held their breath, terrified. When the troll heard no sounds, it moved away, bringing them a brief moment of relief. However, a sudden lightning strike startled the villagers, causing them to scream in panic. The troll heard the noise and turned back toward the room, smashing the door with relentless force until it broke through. The troll entered the room, its presence towering and menacing. Everyone stood frozen in terror as Cheyenne thought to himself how foolish he had been to wish to study such a dangerous creature. Cheyenne's mother instinctively stepped in front of her children, shielding them. The troll let out a strange, mocking laugh. Cheyenne realized that the troll wasn't entirely mindless. It seemed to understand its overwhelming advantage and strength. Overwhelmed with fear, Cheyenne's mother collapsed to the ground. Mary, desperate to protect her family, grabbed her sword and confronted the troll. She reminded Cheyenne of her promise to protect him. However, the troll easily deflected her attack, flinging her sword against the wall and knocking her down. The troll then prepared to kill Mary, but their mother, summoning her last strength, shielded Mary with her own body, taking a blow to her back. Even then, the troll didn't stop. It moved closer, intent on finishing both Mary and her mother. Cheyenne fell to the ground, paralyzed with despair, blaming himself for his inability to protect his family, the people he loved most. But as the troll loomed over them, Cheyenne refused to give up. Fueled by desperation, he leapt forward and grabbed the troll's arm. He thought to himself, this isn't enough, but then noticed something incredible. The troll's body radiated magical energy similar to his own. As the villagers watched in shock, only Mary and Rose could see the magical energy emanating from Cheyenne. Cheyenne concentrated all his energy into his hand, gripping the troll with every ounce of strength he had. At first the troll laughed, unfazed by the effort, but as Cheyenne's magical power intensified, the troll's arm began to burn. The searing pain caused the troll to cry out, and it threw Cheyenne across the room before collapsing to the ground. Cheyenne didn't stop. Fueled by determination, he leapt onto the troll's back and shouted, "Burn!" Gathering all his magical energy into his hand, he pressed it against the troll's head. The troll let out a deafening scream as its body was engulfed in flames. In a final desperate surge of power, Cheyenne managed to kill the troll by burning it to death. As the troll fell lifeless to the ground, Cheyenne stood up, unable to fully process what had just happened. The villagers stared at him in stunned silence. Feeling uneasy, Cheyenne said, "Why are you all looking at me like I'm the monster here?" Rose stepped forward, reassuring him, "We survived because of you." Her words calmed Cheyenne, but the relief was short-lived as they noticed his mother writhing in pain. Mary tried to approach their mother, but Cheyenne and Rose stopped her. Realizing the severity of the situation, Cheyenne examined his mother and noticed her pale complexion and heavy bleeding. He concluded that the most immediate priority was to stop the bleeding. Carefully, he instructed the villagers to help move his mother to the bed. After laying her down, Cheyenne urgently asked if anyone among the villagers had medical experience, but no one responded. Thinking quickly, he decided to stitch the wound himself. He asked again if anyone knew how to sew, and one woman raised her hand. Cheyenne asked her for help and then instructed the others to retrieve sewing supplies from his mother's room, along with alcohol and clean cloth. He pleaded with them to hurry, emphasizing the lack of time. As the villagers scrambled to gather the needed items, a young child approached Cheyenne, holding his hand and saying, "Thank you for saving us." Cheyenne gave a brief nod of acknowledgement but stayed focused on his mother. Once the materials arrived, Cheyenne and the woman who could sew sat beside his mother. With trembling hands, he cut the fabric around the wound, exposing the injury. He was deeply worried about the possibility that the troll's claws might be venomous. Despite his fear, Cheyenne told himself that his actions were their only hope of saving her. Cheyenne turned to the seamstress and said, "Let's begin now." The woman, confused, asked what she needed to do. Cheyenne told her they had to stitch the wound, which left her stunned, realizing that wound stitching wasn't a common practice in this world. Cheyenne explained, "If we don't stitch the wound, it will remain open, and my mother could die. We need to close it to stop the bleeding." He reassured her, "Don't worry, just follow my instructions." The woman hesitated, clearly uneasy, and admitted she couldn't bring herself to cause more pain to Cheyenne's mother. Cheyenne firmly replied, "You have two choices: hurt her a little more and save her life, or leave her like this, and she will die." Still unsure, the woman tried to refuse, but Cheyenne knelt before her and begged, "Please, save my mother." Moved by his desperation, the woman agreed. Following Cheyenne's guidance, they cleaned the wound thoroughly and began stitching it. Despite the difficulty, they successfully completed the procedure. Cheyenne's mother's condition seemed to stabilize afterward. Cheyenne thanked the woman, who humbly replied, "I did everything with your instructions." She then asked if his mother would recover. Cheyenne told her they would need to monitor her for a while to be sure. Mary, deeply affected by everything, embraced Cheyenne tightly. At that moment, their father and the warriors returned to the village. They had successfully defeated the trolls, but discovered more troll tracks, indicating a larger group nearby. Some villagers had sustained injuries during the fight, but fortunately, no one else had died. After ensuring the village's safety, the group returned home. The next day, a doctor visited and examined Cheyenne's mother. He confirmed that her injuries were severe but had not reached her bones or vital organs. He praised the stitching work, saying it was done exceptionally well, and asked who had such medical knowledge. Cheyenne's father hesitated but ultimately claimed that someone in the village must have helped. Later, Cheyenne's mother regained consciousness and thanked the doctor. After the doctor left, Mary approached her mother, apologizing for what had happened and blaming herself for the events. Her mother held Mary's hand gently and reassured her, "It wasn't your fault. You were brave and tried to protect everyone. You should be proud of yourself." Cheyenne's father, who had been observing silently, finally spoke to Cheyenne. With a mix of curiosity and amazement, he said, "The villagers told me everything. How did you manage to do all of this? Where did you learn about medicine?" Cheyenne thought carefully, realizing he couldn't reveal the full truth to his father. Instead, he replied, "I don't know how it happened or where this knowledge came from." His father, still curious, asked, "And how did you manage to defeat the troll? What about the burn marks on its body?" Cheyenne remained silent, unsure of how to respond. His father then asked directly, "Was it magic?" Cheyenne was shocked and asked, "How did you figure that out?" His father explained, "You're far more rational than most kids your age, Cheyenne. Once you spoke about something unusual, magic. It made me wonder." Cheyenne hesitated before saying, "If I tell you the truth, will you believe me?" His father replied, "I don't know, but I want to believe my children." At that moment, Mary interjected, excitedly saying, "Cheyenne is amazing, father. He's been researching magic." This revelation stunned their father, who exclaimed, "Researching? You're behaving like an adult. Don't tell anyone about this, Cheyenne. If you do, you could be in danger." Cheyenne asked, "Are you saying that people who are different face persecution?" His father confirmed this and urged him to stop his research into magic. insisting that magic seemed far too dangerous. Xian was taken aback by his father's words, feeling conflicted and disheartened. Mary came to Xian's defense, saying, "You don't understand how much effort Xian has put into this. Besides, the villagers and I are all safe because of what he did." Their father acknowledged this, but maintained his stance. "I know, what he did saved lives," he said, "but I can't let him continue pursuing something that might be dangerous." Mary argued passionately, "You don't even know if magic is dangerous or not." Their father, growing frustrated, replied sharply, "If it's dangerous, we'll only find out when it's too late. A power capable of killing trolls, how could it not be dangerous?" Xian thought about the immense effort he had put into his research and declared, "I will continue studying magic." His father, growing angry, asked, "Why don't you understand what I'm saying?" Xian replied calmly, "I do understand you, father. I understand your concerns and feelings, but if I stop my research, I will be miserable. To you this power may seem dangerous, but to me, it represents my dreams." His father tried to reason with him, saying, "You're still young. When you grow older, your perspective will change." Xian firmly responded, "That will never happen." His conviction left his father momentarily speechless. Xian continued, "If what I'm doing is dangerous and harmful to you, then you can disown me." Mary, saddened by the conversation, listened quietly. Xian's father then asked, "Do you truly want to pursue this research so much?" Xian answered without hesitation, "Yes." His father pressed further, "Even if everyone rejects you and no one wants you around?" Xian stood firm, saying, "Yes, I will continue." After a long pause, his father finally relented. "All right then, continue your research, but from now on, you must provide me with regular reports on your discoveries. If I ever find you doing something dangerous, I will stop you immediately." Xian, surprised, asked, "Is that all? Are you really going to let me do what I want?" His father sighed and replied, "What else can I do if my son is so determined?" "Go ahead, Xian." Moved by his father's words, Xian began to cry. His father placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Hold your head high. You found your dream and decided to pursue it. So no matter what happens, keep chasing it, and I will support you because that's my duty as a father." Mary, overjoyed by the resolution, exclaimed, "This is amazing, Xian. Congratulations." After that, we see Xian's father lighting the firewood and asking Xian's brother, "Is this enough?" To which he replies, "Yes, this is perfect." His sister is surprised and asks him, "What are you doing?" Xian tells her that he wants to try something using magic. Then, Xian gathers magical energy in his hand, approaches the fire, and the fire turns blue and gathers in his hand. This prompts his father to pour water on him to save him, saying, "What you're doing is very dangerous." Mary goes to check on her brother, but he tells her, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I learned something from what happened that magical energy merges with natural energy. As you saw, when I merged magical energy with the fire, it turned blue and was influenced by my energy. This means that magical energy affects all phenomena." His father responds, "I don't see the magic you're talking about, but I saw what happened, and I have no choice but to believe you." Mary feels jealous and says, "It seems like you two understand each other now, but I don't understand anything." Xian tries to comfort her, saying, "There are many other things you're good at, and I discovered magical energy thanks to you." Mary is happy to hear this. Afterward, Xian imagines himself launching a fireball and starts laughing foolishly. Xian's father is puzzled, but Mary explains that Xian becomes like this whenever he discovers something new about magic. Xian then begins repeatedly experimenting to discover new things, with his father helping and standing by to extinguish him if needed. Xian's father is very supportive and assists him with everything he needs. Xian keeps trying until he gets tired, and his father suggests, "Let's take a break." Then Xian's father goes to get him a warm drink to help him recover. Xian thanks him and starts drying himself off. Then Rose appears and asks him, "Is this another magic experiment?" He replies, "Yes," and explains the situation to her, which surprises her. He tells her that he will show her later, because his father forbids him from using magic unless he's present. Rose is surprised that Xian told his father, but he explains that his father is very supportive and more interested in the matter than he is. Rose comments, "Your father is extremely supportive." Xian then thanks Rose for what she did for him that day. She asks, "What do you mean?" He replies, "The day I killed the ghoul, you treated me kindly, and it made me very happy and comforted me." Rose responds, "I should be the one thanking you. We're safe now because of you." She then asks about Mary, who seems to be training harder. Rose remarks, "I think it's because of what happened 2 days ago she feels responsible." Xian replies, "I know, but I think she'll be fine and get through it." Rose tells him, "You need to always support her. She's counting on you." Mary, meanwhile, is remembering what happened and is deeply affected, which drives her to train even harder. Xian begins explaining the things he discovered about magical energy. First, the more magical energy gathered, the the larger the flame. Second, they experimented with other heat sources, and if the heat was high, his hand would also ignite with flames. Third, if he touched fire while his body was charged with normal magical energy, his hand would ignite with regular flames, not blue ones. Fourth, if his hands were covered with something, he could still gather flames through it without being affected. He then says that the energy he currently possesses is dangerous and has no practical use yet. His father tells him, this is an interesting experiment, but it seems controlling the fire element will be very difficult. Xian responds, I can control it if I manage to gather the magical energy a little away from my hand. Mary then tells him, I was able to do that, which shocks Xian. Mary adds that Rose can also do it. When Xian sees this, he tells them, you two are geniuses. Xian tries to gather magical energy away from his hand, with Mary and Rose helping and guiding him. Eventually, Xian succeeds in figuring it out, gathering magical energy and releasing it from his hand. He is very happy, but his father still can't see anything. Later, Xian goes outside to try something with a lighter in his hand. His father asks, don't you need to light the fire? Xian replies, no, and gathers magical energy in his hand, channeling it through the lighter to launch a fireball. This excites everyone. Xian thinks to himself, this is still experimental, but the magic I dreamed of in my previous life has now become a reality. Xian laughs foolishly at discovering something new, and everyone congratulates him on his achievement. Xian then says he named this energy the flame, and mentions that, for now, he can't use it for attacks. We then see Xian harvesting crops with his father, saying, it's been a month since the last ghoul attack. Later we see Xian training, looking exhausted, and saying he wants to train more to increase his energy, because every time he uses the new spell, it drains his energy quickly. Xian then notices his sister Mary training hard, with her hands showing signs of blisters from intense training. Their father tells her, that's enough, you need to rest. But she replies, you're the one who told me, Dad, that more training will make me stronger. He responds, even if that's true, there are limits you shouldn't exceed. Xian also tells her she needs to stop and rest, but she ignores him and continues training, prompting Xian to yell at her. This upsets her, and she leaves. Xian's father tells him, don't worry, she's just feeling a bit stressed and responsible. She'll be fine. Xian looks very sad for his sister. After that, Xian was sitting with his father and asked him about electricity, but his father had never heard of it before. He asked, what is that? Xian replied, it's something like lightning, and he wondered if there was anything like animals or plants that could produce something similar. Xian thought to himself that his experiments with flame magic had reached a dead end, so he wanted to take a different path. The other path was using lightning clouds because he believed he could control lightning and use it just as he had learned to use fire. But his father told him, no, there's nothing like that, which made Xian feel frustrated. However, his father then said, if you're talking about lightning, I've heard someone mention seeing something resembling lightning. He added that this person was his friend Grast, and suggested to Xian, let's go to the city of Asteria now. Xian proposed that Mary come with them, but she said, no, I'll stay here. I have tasks to do. Xian was shocked, and Mary escorted him to the door saying, have fun, and then shut the door in his face. It seemed Mary was in pain from her injuries. After that, Xian and his father went to Grast, who told them, yes, there's something called lightning ore. Xian's father asked how they could obtain this lightning ore, and Grast replied, it's very difficult. Xian's father asked, why? Is it rare? Grast said, no, but it's very heavy and dangerous. It emits strange energy which makes transporting it very difficult. Xian thought to himself, if lightning ore is a metal that can emit electrical energy, how will we transport it now? Then Xian asked Grast, are there any trees that produce a sticky white liquid? Grast replied, no, I've never heard of that before. Xian thought to himself, so rubber trees don't exist yet. The other insulator for electricity is glass, but I doubt glass would be durable enough. Then Xian asked Grast if he had any rock glass, which they considered a type of mineral. Xian tried to describe it so Grast could recognize it. Grast said, do you mean paper crystal? Yes, I have a little of it. Wait, I kept it because it looked beautiful and unique. Grast brought out the paper crystal, and when Xian held it, he thought, paper crystal is used to make insulators, so I can use it to create an insulator for the lightning ore, but I don't know how to reshape it. Grast was puzzled and said, I don't understand how kids think. Xian's father replied, I don't think Xian thinks like a child. Then Xian asked Grast if he had a larger piece of paper crystal. Grast told him, you can get what you need if you go to the trade district, and described the location. He added, you can get a larger piece for 4,000 realms. Xian thought, at that price, a family could have a very luxurious meal. But his father said, let's go to the trade district now. Xian was surprised and asked, are you going to buy it for me, Dad? His father replied, of course you need it. Xian said, but it's expensive, Dad. His father replied, children shouldn't worry about prices. You've never asked me for anything before. If you need something, ask for it without hesitation. If I can buy it for you, I will. If I can't, I'll tell you. Xian was happy about this, and they managed to get the lightning ore. Then Xian began experimenting and said, if things go as I expect, this will happen. Xian's mother was excited to see her son using magic. Xian gathered magical energy and directed it toward the lightning ore. It seemed there was a clash between the two forces, causing an explosion. Xian's father thought Xian had failed and told him, "Don't be upset. I failed many times before succeeding with fire magic." But then Xian laughed his silly laugh, and it seemed he had discovered something. Xian's mother was happy because her son was happy, but his father didn't understand what had happened. Xian was jumping with joy and began explaining, "When I used magic on the lightning ore, my hands didn't catch fire. This means the magical energy I have has other properties besides ignition. This means the possibility of using magic in all the ways I imagined is now possible." Later, Xian was sitting in his room, feeling frustrated because he was thinking about how to use magic to convert electrical energy into energy he could release. Xian thought and said he wanted to use magical energy more freely. He felt he had made a mistake somewhere. Then he thought harder and realized the issue. He didn't always have to release magical energy in the form of a sphere. He tried imagining it in another form, and it worked. The magical energy came out as he imagined it. Xian was thrilled with his new discovery and went to tell his sister about it, but he didn't find her in her room. He noticed she had removed her bandages, which made him worried. Xian went to look for his sister by the river, and he found her there, training with all her strength. Her training stick broke as a result. Mary was shocked when she saw her brother and asked, "What are you doing here?" Xian replied, "I want to apologize to you because you've always supported me, but when you needed me, I wasn't there for you." Mary said, "I'm not upset about that. I just felt jealous because I've always trained so hard to protect you. But when the moment came, I couldn't do anything, and you were the one who saved us. I'm happy about that because I survived, but I'm also angry at myself for not being able to help you." Xian asked, "So that's why you feel jealous and hate me now?" Mary replied, "Of course not. You're my little brother. I love you, and will always love you. I just can't forgive myself for being weak, and I feel jealous because you've become strong and surpassed me. That's why I've been trying to become stronger and braver." Xian said, "So that's why you've been training so hard?" Mary replied, "Yes, because every time I look at your face, I remember what happened that day." Mary was crying and very upset. Xian went to her and hugged her, saying, "I didn't realize you had all these feelings. I wasn't there for you, and I didn't support you. I'm so sorry, sister." Mary said, "I'm sorry too for being harsh with you." Xian replied, "Don't worry. If anything happens, come to me without hesitation. I'll support you with everything I have." Rose stood nearby, puzzled by how closely Mary was clinging to her brother. Xian reflected that this had been the case ever since they had poured out their hearts to each other. From that day on, Mary seemed unable to keep her distance from him. Eventually, Xian turned to her and gently said, "Mary, I need you to step back a little." "Why?" she asked, her expression falling. "I need space to test my magic," he explained. Mary, feeling a bit hurt, asked, "Am I holding you back?" Xian quickly reassured her, "No, but it will be a bit easier if you step aside." Reluctantly, Mary moved away, though it was clear she wasn't happy about it. With the space he needed, Xian began his experiment. He discovered he could extend his magical energy in any shape he desired. However, he quickly realized that this didn't mean his magical power had increased. In fact, when the energy expanded, it became thinner and less dense, losing its ability to interact with external factors. Considering this, Xian decided to condense the energy instead, making it smaller and more concentrated. When he tried this new method, he used a spark to ignite the condensed energy and was able to release a strong burst of magic. Both his father and Mary were astonished by the sudden surge of power. Xian admitted this outcome had exceeded his expectations. He named the spell Flare and recognized it as a significant enhancement in his magical abilities. Encouraged by his success, Xian attempted to interact with a lightning stone, but the result was disappointing. The magical energy he produced was too weak to react with the stone, leaving him frustrated. Despite the setback, Xian was pleased that he had gained the ability to release magical energy and manipulate its density and shape. Determined to push further, Xian gathered a large amount of magical energy and directed it toward the lightning stone. When the energy hit, a sudden explosion erupted, throwing Xian to the ground. Mary and Rose rushed to his side, worried, but Xian reassured them, saying he was fine. Mary, still shaken, remarked, "I thought the lightning would shoot in the other direction, but it bounced back toward you." Xian explained, "It's not surprising that the lightning was drawn to the source of energy." Internally, Xian felt he was on the brink of discovering something new, though he couldn't quite grasp it yet. He sensed that magic held limitless potential, but his understanding was still incomplete. He recognized that he lacked the innovation and creativity needed to push his abilities further. Reflecting on everything, Xian thought, "Maybe things have gone so smoothly up until now that I started to believe in the illusion that this world brought me here to create magic." Just then, Xian's father arrived, accompanied by his friend, Brast. They sat down at the table, but Xian noticed that Grass seemed unusually worried and somber. Xian's father turned to him and asked, "Do you remember how you extracted the lightning ore?" "Yes," Xian replied. His father nodded and pointed at Grass, saying, "Well, this fool here used your method to harvest lightning ore that was supposed to be impossible to extract. Grast had used the method he learned from Xian to extract the lightning ore and decided to turn it into a profitable business. Feeling guilty, Grast apologized to Xian, saying, "I wanted to make a fortune by smuggling the lightning ore without consulting you, even though it was your idea." Xian, however, replied calmly, "I don't think there's a problem with that." Grast was surprised by Xian's response and said, "But I used your idea for my own benefit without your permission." Xian reassured him, "That doesn't matter to me." At that point, Xian's father interjected, "But that's not the only problem." He explained that when they visited Grast's warehouse, they found that the lightning stones were discharging high amounts of energy uncontrollably, making them impossible to store. Grast added, "The stones ended up this way because they aren't suitable for energy discharge or lighting. Some people bought them at first, but soon after, no one wanted them. Now, things are as you see." Xian's father was clearly frustrated and unsure of what to do next. Grast turned to Xian, pleading, "Can you find a way for me to sell these stones? Also, can you solve the energy discharge problem? The people who bought the lightning stones are starting to complain about sparks and small explosions. If I don't fix this in 3 days, I'll have to refund everyone, and I'll go bankrupt. I won't be able to continue my business or even afford this warehouse." Grast added with hope, "You're a genius, Xian. You always find solutions." Xian's father looked sorrowful for his friend, while Xian remained silent for a moment. Grast began to lose hope, thinking Xian wouldn't respond, but then Xian said, "All right, I'll find a solution." Grast was overjoyed. But Xian cautioned, "I'm not certain yet, so don't set your expectations too high." Xian then approached the lightning stones and asked Grast, "Why did you arrange them like this?" Grast explained, "Because if I bring them closer together, this happens." As he moved 2 stones near each other, a sudden discharge occurred between them. Xian observed carefully and thought, "So, that's how it works." Grast then brought out a stone he had created by melting the lightning ores together. Xian asked, "Does it discharge any energy or create a spark if we bring 2 of them close?" Grast replied, "You can try for yourself." Xian pressed the 2 melted stones together, and nothing happened. "So this is what happens when the lightning ore is processed." Xian thought to himself. He then asked Grast, "At what stage did the energy disappear from the stone?" Grast replied, "There was some energy when I broke it, but it disappeared during the melting process." Xian nodded, understanding the process. He took out his lighter and asked his father's permission to conduct an experiment. His father allowed him, saying, "You can do whatever you need." Xian used his flare spell, igniting a small flame. Grast was stunned, but Xian calmly said, "Please continue your work." Grast, however, couldn't ignore what he had just witnessed. "Stop, don't act like nothing happened. How did you make fire come out of your hand?" Xian replied simply, "It's magic." Then he looked at his father, silently asking for permission to explain further. His father nodded, showing his complete trust in Grast. Grast was still in disbelief. He turned to Xian's father and asked, "Did you know about this?" Xian's father responded, "Yes, we knew." Grast shook his head, overwhelmed. "If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it, but now, I believe." Grast turned to Xian and asked, "Do you think the result will change if we use your fire to melt the lightning stone?" Xian replied, "I'm not sure, but let's find out." Grast agreed, warning that the process could take about an hour, and suggested they take a walk outside while he worked. However, Xian insisted on staying, eager to see the outcome. The others decided to stay with him as well. After an hour, Grast finished reshaping the lightning stone, and they began the experiment. When Grast brought 2 of the newly forged stones close to each other, a spark ignited between them. Xian was thrilled the magical fire had made a difference. Everyone congratulated him on the success, and Xian decided to name the new stones Iron Lightning. He predicted these stones would become a highly sought-after product. They immediately began producing iron lightning panels and worked non-stop for 3 days without sleep. In the end, they successfully manufactured all the products they needed, including lightning lamps and magical lighters. Xian's father was incredibly proud and congratulated him on his achievements. Even Mary praised him, and Xian quietly admitted to himself that he had worried she might feel jealous again, but she didn't. Grast thanked Xian, saying, "You're truly special. I don't know how you come up with these ideas." Grast seemed about to say something more, but Xian's father quickly interrupted him. Grast apologized, and Xian sensed there was something hidden in Grast's words, wondering what he had meant to say. As Grast bid farewell to Xian and his family, he told Xian, "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask. I'll help you with everything I have." Curious, Mary asked, "What do you mean by that?" Xian smiled and replied, "While we were making these tools, I had an idea. I think this idea could lead to a big change in what I'm planning." It soon became clear that Grast's new products, the lightning lamps and lighters, were a massive success. They quickly sold out, earning Grast considerable profits. Later, Xian was conducting a new experiment. He brought out a candle and a cover, explaining, "A regular flame needs oxygen to keep burning. If we cover it, it will go out. But what will happen if we light the candle with magical fire?" Mary guessed, "I think it won't go out." Rose, on the other hand, said, "I think it will." Xian lit the candle with his flare spell and then covered it. When he removed the cover, the magical flame was still burning. Mary was delighted that her guess had beaten Rose's, but Xian was deeply intrigued by the result. He thought to himself, "This means magical fire doesn't require oxygen." Rose, puzzled, asked, "What do you mean?" Xian Xian replied, I'm not entirely sure yet, but this could mean that magical energy enhances natural phenomena, making them immune to external factors. Mary asked, will this change anything? Xian answered, not for now, but we've learned that magical fire is different from ordinary fire. An idea suddenly struck him. Xian used his flare spell again, throwing a flame some distance away. He then asked Mary to direct some of her magical energy toward the flame. When Mary did so, her magical energy collided with Xian's flame, triggering a massive explosion that knocked her to the ground. Xian rushed to check on his sister, but she reassured him, I just got a little scared, but I'm fine. Then she asked, Xian, did you know that would happen? Xian shook his head and replied honestly, of course not, I had no idea. Xian reflected on the explosion and admitted, I only expected the flame to intensify, nothing more. Mary, still puzzled, asked, then why did that happen? The magical energy I released was so small. Xian thought deeply and realized she was right. Her magical energy was minimal, yet when it touched the flare flame, it caused a massive explosion. Determined to understand, Xian began analyzing everything that had happened. After careful consideration, he discovered something new. He rushed to conduct another experiment, this time using a lightning stone. He directed his magical energy toward it, but this time no explosion occurred. Overjoyed, he exclaimed, so that's how it works. Rose, confused, asked, but weren't you the one who said this was magic? Xian nodded, yes it is, magic, but it's not just magical energy. It's air interacting with the magical energy. When I tried to activate lightning magic, I noticed signs of wind resistance, and when I covered the flare flame, it wasn't affected by the lack of oxygen. This means that magical energy behaves like air, and when it interacts with physical substances, it amplifies their properties. Realizing this breakthrough, Xian burst into his trademark goofy laughter. This could lead to significant progress in my research. Both Rose and Mary were thrilled for him, sharing in his excitement. Later, Xian embarked on a new experiment. He explained that Mr. Grast had completed a special request for him 2 gloves made from leather and paper crystal. Wearing the gloves, Xian began a series of tests. He successfully produced fire, resulting in a massive explosion that left everyone stunned. He then experimented with lightning, releasing a powerful concentrated lightning beam. Standing proudly, Xian declared, I did it, I finally succeeded. He felt as though his research had reached a new milestone. Xian's father stood nearby, utterly astonished by his son's achievements. Mary rushed to him, congratulating him excitedly. That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. Overcome with emotion, Xian began to cry, unable to believe what he had accomplished. Mary and Rose rushed to comfort him, while his father, mother, and Grast watched with pride, deeply moved by Xian's progress. That night, while the house was quiet, Xian overheard his father, mother, and Grast having a private conversation. Curious, he quietly approached to listen. Grast was saying, Xian's magic is amazing. It could become a valuable asset, something truly remarkable. Xian's father responded, Xian is wise. He won't reveal his abilities to just anyone. His mother added, he's very smart, but he's still just a child. Xian's father sighed and said, what's happening is beyond my control. Xian is clever and sharp, and I won't be able to stop what he's doing. We were entrusted with him. Xian's heart stopped. Entrusted with me? It seems Xian is adopted. Xian was stunned. Could it be true? Am I not related to this family by blood? The realization shook him to his core. Xian continued training diligently, and at last he successfully shattered a wooden board using a powerful lightning spell. Mary and Rose cheered for him, overjoyed by his progress. They praised how much he had improved, and Xian humbly credited it to his growing familiarity with the spell. He then sincerely thanked both Mary and Rose for their constant support. Afterward, Xian recalled his father's words and, more importantly, Mary's feelings toward him. A thought crossed his mind. Since we aren't related by blood, does that mean we could get married someday? Realizing what he was thinking, he quickly shook the thoughts away, trying to push them out of his mind. Later, while sitting in his room, Xian found himself still dwelling on the idea of blood relations. However, he resolved to distract himself with his magical experiments instead. He decided to shift his focus to composite magic, a technique that amplifies magical energy and increases its concentration. By merging 2 magical elements, he believed he could strengthen his spells and release them with greater power. As he pondered his approach, he noted that fusing certain spells together had produced no noticeable effects so far. Determined, he planned a new experiment and headed toward the river. There, he repeatedly attempted a spell but failed each time. Frustrated and confused by his lack of success, he couldn't understand why it wasn't working. Mary and Rose, equally puzzled, asked, Xian, we don't understand what's happening. Can you explain it to us? Xian explained, in our last experiment, we discovered that magical energy takes on the properties of air, so I wanted to see what would happen if I directed it into water. But unfortunately, nothing happened. Unlike fire and lightning, magical energy doesn't seem to affect water in any noticeable way. He then started muttering a series of complicated thoughts, causing Mary and Rose to become completely lost in his explanation. But they exchanged glances and sighed, admitting, we're used to this by now. Determined not to give up, Xian attempted another experiment. This time, he succeeded in making the water float. Mary was ecstatic, exclaiming, that means magical energy does interact with water. This is amazing, Xian. Rose, equally impressed, added, that means you'll be able to use water magic too. Hearing their excitement, Xian felt a surge of joy. He had made another new discovery. However, he noted that while he had found a way to influence water, the effect was still weak and lacked real power. He realized there was still much to learn before his magic could truly harness water as an element. Xian attempted to lift water while standing outside of it, but he was unsuccessful. However, he felt a slight dampness on his hand and pondered the sensation. That makes sense, he thought. I can only concentrate a small amount of magical energy in my right hand, and this moisture must be the equivalent of the magical energy I released. Determined, he unleashed a massive surge of magical energy, shocking both Mary and Rose. This time, when he attempted to gather water in his hands, he succeeded. Mary, still in disbelief, ran up to him and asked, "Where did that water sphere come from? Don't tell me you pulled it from the river." Xian explained, "I spread my magical energy widely and attempted to gather water particles from the air. That's how I was able to form this water sphere." Mary was amazed and asked, "So what will you name this spell?" Since it was a water-based spell, Xian decided, "I'll call it Aqua." Curious, Mary and Rose attempted the spell themselves. To their delight, they managed to perform it, though their water spheres immediately exploded in their faces. They burst into laughter, enjoying the experience. Xian was thrilled, realizing that both Mary and Rose were now capable of casting multiple types of magic. Later, while riding with his parents, Xian was deep in thought. "It seems like it's time to move on to the second phase of my magical experiments." "No, not yet." Afterward, Xian and Grast headed to the guild to accept a mission. Grast informed him, "To take on any mission, you need to register with the guild first. Are you sure you want to do this?" Mary and Rose were also present, watching the exchange. Xian had already made up his mind. "I decided to do this to see whether monsters can be affected by magic." Grast turned to Mary and Rose and told them, "You two don't have to come along." Mary, however, stood firm. "I won't run away this time. If I keep running, I'll run forever. I want to become stronger." Rose added, "Me too. I want to get stronger as well." Seeing their determination, Grast nodded. "All right then, we're all in agreement. Let's go." Before they left, Xian turned to Grast and requested, "Please keep this a secret from my parents." Upon entering the guild, Grast introduced himself as a platinum-ranked adventurer. The receptionist greeted him and inquired about his request. Grast asked for 3 registration forms to sign up the children. The receptionist agreed but curiously asked if the 2 people behind him were there to support the children. Confused, Grast turned around only to see Xian's parents standing behind them. The entire group was taken aback by their unexpected presence. Xian's father stepped forward and calmly stated that he had also come to support them. He then revealed that he was a diamond-ranked adventurer. The entire guild fell silent in shock. Diamond rank was an incredibly rare and prestigious level, far beyond what anyone had expected. Without further discussion, Xian's father simply instructed them to complete their registration and promised they would talk later. The children followed his orders, still processing the situation. Once outside the guild, Xian's father turned to them and asked if there was anything they wanted to say. Overwhelmed with guilt, they all apologized. Their father sighed, admitting that he had expected something like this to happen. Xian, stunned, asked if his father had already known they were planning to register for monster hunting. His father clarified that he hadn't known their exact intentions, but he had been certain they were scheming something. He pointed out that Mary had avoided eye contact with him and their mother for days, which was a clear sign that she was hiding something. Hearing this, Mary lowered her head and apologized again. Xian's father admitted he had never imagined they would plan something as dangerous as this. They all apologized once more, but before their father could respond, Grast stepped in to defend them. He explained that the children had thought carefully before making this decision, and urged Xian's father not to be too harsh on them. However, Xian's father simply gave him a pointed look and reminded him that he was the last person who should be speaking in their defense. Turning back to the group, Xian's father demanded that they explain their plans. Once he had listened to their reasoning, he acknowledged that they hadn't come to the guild for a reckless adventure, but had a clear goal in mind. He admitted that the one thing he respected about their decision was that they had chosen to come with someone responsible. Even if he hadn't arrived, he believed Grast would have ensured their safety. However, he reminded them that the world was unpredictable, and no one could guarantee complete safety. With a firm yet understanding tone, he told them that if they ever planned to do something this dangerous again, they needed to inform him first. Having strong adventurers by their side would be beneficial. Xian hesitated before asking if this meant his father would be joining them. His father confirmed that he would accompany them, much to their joy. Shortly after, the group set out on their mission. When they encountered a group of 4 monsters, Xian's father stood alone to face them. As soon as the creatures attacked, he eliminated them with astonishing speed, effortlessly cutting them down before anyone could react. Grast, watching in awe, couldn't help but comment on how monstrous his strength was. As expected, Xian's father casually replied that he believed they would be safe now. Xian stood frozen in shock. He had always known his father was strong, but seeing him in action was beyond anything he had imagined. A feeling of helplessness crept in. Was there even a point to their presence when someone as powerful as his father was there? Sensing Xian's thoughts, his father reassured him that more monsters would come and that next time, they would have their chance to fight. As if on cue, another wave of creatures appeared. Xian's father quickly assessed the new group and determined that they were not as strong as goblins, making them ideal opponents for the children's first real battle. Mary, visibly nervous, hesitated as the creatures prepared to attack. Xian's father stepped in, organizing their formation and explaining that these monsters had no long-range attacks. Hearing this, Xian immediately realized that their magic would be highly effective in the fight. Xian launched his attack, unleashing a powerful spell that eliminated several monsters at once. However, just as he was about to celebrate, another creature lunged at him from behind, ready to strike. At the last moment, Mary intervened, saving him from the fatal blow. Meanwhile, Rose held her ground, fighting skillfully, improving her combat abilities. Regrouping, Xian, Mary, and Rose launched another coordinated attack, fighting with renewed determination. Together, they managed to take down the remaining creatures, believing they had secured victory. However, just as relief washed over them, another monster emerged from the shadows, catching them off guard. Reacting quickly, Xian eliminated the creature in the nick of time, ensuring their safety. They exchanged words of gratitude, recognizing how much they had supported one another during the battle. Mary, still catching her breath, turned to Xian and expressed how much more confident she felt fighting by his side. With him there, she finally believed in her own strength. Meanwhile, Xian reflected inwardly, realizing that blood ties didn't define their relationship. No matter what, Mary would always be his big sister, the only one in the world. Their father then approached, commending them on their performance. He praised their movements, acknowledging their teamwork and execution. Without hesitation, he announced that they would now proceed to a second battle, emphasizing that there was no better opportunity to gain real combat experience. Having already spotted signs of more monsters nearby, he urged them forward. Xian was stunned by his father's relentless pace, but he had no time to process his surprise. They soon engaged in another fierce battle, giving their all to defeat the monsters. Despite their victory, exhaustion quickly set in. Mary, completely drained, admitted that she couldn't fight any longer. Their father once again praised their efforts, while Grass jokingly commented that he barely felt like he had done anything at all. Xian admitted that keeping up with their father in combat was proving to be an incredibly difficult challenge. Mary, though exhausted, pointed out that they had gained valuable experience from the battles. She recognized that they were far better in combat than they had initially believed. Xian agreed, acknowledging that their understanding of fighting had greatly improved. Rose added that they had learned many things they hadn't known before. Recognizing their exhaustion, Xian's father declared that he and Grass would handle gathering the spoils from the fallen monsters, while the rest of them took a break. As they rested, Xian's gaze drifted toward a dark cave nearby. Intrigued, he decided to explore it, and Mary and Rose, though hesitant, followed him. Once inside, a wave of unease washed over them. The cave was shrouded in darkness, and an unsettling atmosphere filled the air. Mary and Rose voiced their concerns, feeling that entering was a mistake. The surroundings were ominous, and danger seemed to lurk in every corner. However, as they moved deeper inside, Xian noticed a faint light ahead. Curious, they cautiously approached and discovered something unexpected: a fairy trapped inside a cage. As Xian stepped closer to free her, the fairy panicked and attempted to flee. Confused by her fear, Mary and Rose questioned what he planned to do. Without hesitation, Xian declared that they would set her free. Both Mary and Rose agreed with his decision. With careful precision, Xian unlocked the cage. The fairy hesitated for a moment, appearing shocked, as if she couldn't believe she was truly free. Then, without warning, she shot out of the cage and took flight. They all watched in awe, marveling at the sight of a fairy flying freely. None of them had ever seen such a creature in motion before. As the fairy disappeared into the distance, they bid her farewell, hoping she would return safely to her home. Feeling a sense of accomplishment, they made their way back to their camp. However, upon arrival, they were met with an unusual sight. Xian's father appeared nervous, as if he was anticipating something dreadful. As he turned to leave, trying to slip away unnoticed, Xian's mother appeared, blocking his path. She firmly requested a private conversation with him, and moments later the sounds of his shouting filled the air. Shortly after, Xian's mother returned, her demeanor calm but firm. When she asked what had happened, both Xian and Mary stiffened in fear, bracing themselves for what was to come. Once they sat down to talk, their mother revealed that she had known about their monster hunting mission all along. Their father had already told her before they had left. Confused, Xian asked why she had reacted so strongly if she had known from the start. She explained that it was rare for her to see them return home with their father, covered in wounds from battle. She knew their father well. When he focused on something, he became blind to everything else around him. She was certain that he had used the opportunity to fight as many monsters as possible, all while allowing them to take unnecessary risks. She clarified that she wasn't angry about their desire to grow stronger. To her, as long as they weren't harming or deceiving others, they were free to pursue their own paths. However, as their mother, she had one request: to always take care of one another. Xian and Mary, deeply moved by her words, apologized for worrying her. Understanding their sincerity, she simply instructed them to wash up before eating, putting the matter to rest. After that, Xian was fighting goblins and wanted to try out a new spell. He created a whirlwind of air, wrapped it in a magical barrier, and increased its power as much as possible, forming a storm that struck the goblin and defeated it. After casting this spell, he was very happy but also felt frustrated because it took a lot of time. However, since its primary purpose wasn't for attacking, he figured he wouldn't need it much. Then his sister Mary called out to him, and she appeared with Rose. They had grown up since it had been 2 years since they started fighting monsters. They were all happy because each of them had managed to take down a group of goblins. Afterward, they were walking through the city, and Xian was looking around. Rose asked him what was wrong, and he replied, nothing. But deep down he was thinking about how he didn't see anyone with the same magical aura as Mary and Rose. As they walked, they talked about how the number of monsters had increased significantly recently. The guild was receiving many new adventurers and a lot of missions as well. They were surprised by the increase in goblin numbers around the city, since goblins were supposed to be strong monsters that only appeared in dangerous areas. They also noticed a rise in the number of vagrants. Mary suggested they go to Grust, and they did. Grust welcomed them warmly and told them they could stay as long as they wanted since there weren't many customers that day. Xian offered to help Grust with melting metal, but Grust told him he didn't need help that day. He also handed Xian the new gloves he had prepared for him. Xian was very happy and asked how he managed to finish them so quickly since he had only requested them recently. Grust replied, you go through gloves so fast, but that just shows your growth and strength. Then Grust asked how they were doing and said, it seems like you're doing well even without me or Gawain, referring to Xian's father. Mary said they were close to reaching the silver rank. Grust was surprised and said, I don't think anyone your age has ever reached that rank. Rose replied, I thought you and Mr. Gawain reached that rank before our age. Grust explained, actually we weren't registered with the guild when we were fighting monsters at your age because guilds weren't common back then. Meanwhile, Xian was testing out his new gloves. Mary approached him and said, you're using so many types of magic now. What will you do if you can use even more? He replied, I'm already planning for that because I want to learn and use more and more magic. She asked, and then what? Xian couldn't answer. Mary continued, we're much better now thanks to you. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to create these lamps, and we might have died because of the goblin you saved us from. I don't think anyone else could have done what you did. Xian was moved by her words. Mary added, don't get me wrong, I want you to do whatever you want, but I just want to point out that the magic you've discovered is incredible. I feel like we can use this magic for things other than fighting. Xian was surprised by her statement. Mary told him that their father had mentioned how this magical power affects everything and has both good and bad sides. But I feel like there are more good things we can do with it, she said. Later, Xian was training with his father, and their battle was intense. When Xian's father was about to win, Xian jumped over him and used an earth spell that caused his father to sink into the ground, securing Xian's victory. His father, surprised, said, I never imagined you'd do something like this. What was that spell? Xian explained, it's my new spell. I sent air into the ground, which increased the air pressure and created this hole. Then Xian added, but moving while activating magical attacks is exhausting. I need to work on my physical abilities more. His father replied, that's nothing for a beginner like you. You've improved a lot, even surprising yourself with this attack. Xian said, really? But this attack doesn't always go the way I want. In future experiments, I want to use air for flying. His father laughed and said, like a bird? Those are big dreams. Mary then appeared and said, sorry to interrupt, but I want to train with Dad too. She started training with her father, and their battle was also intense. Xian observed and noted how much Mary had improved, becoming very fast with her sword. However, Mary was too reckless, and her father managed to defeat her, causing her to fall to the ground in frustration. She said, I can't win. Xian always wins. Her father reassured her, don't rush. You're doing great, and I'm sure you'll beat me one day. Mary smiled and said, thank you, Dad, before going back to train again. Xian then asked his father about Mary. His father said, she's doing great. For her age, she has the skills of a high-level swordsman, comparable to adults. She also has incredible physical strength. Even though she's a young girl, she's exceptional. Xian, shocked, asked, could this be because of her magical energy? His father replied, it's possible, but it's nothing to worry about. Mary will be fine. Later, Xian and Mary met Rose, who apologized for asking for their help. She explained that they were short on workers. Mary said, friends are supposed to help each other. Xian asked, what do you need help with? Rose replied, I need you to get rid of pests like these worms. They helped her, and Xian had no trouble, but Mary struggled. The atmosphere was very cheerful, and by the end of the day, Mary said, I'm really tired. I didn't catch many pests today, but I'll do better next time. Xian said he would help again too. Mary said that next time she would gather more pests and defeat them. Then, the sky filled with clouds, a strange color appeared, and everyone started running to take shelter from the rain. Suddenly, Mary collapsed and fainted. Xian rushed to check on her, but she didn't respond. Xian and Rose were shocked by what had happened. They took Mary home, and Xian checked her temperature, finding that she was extremely cold. Their parents arrived, worried about Mary. Later, Mary opened her eyes but didn't speak or give any sign that she was okay. Rose suggested that Mary might have caught the lethargy disease. Xian's father asked, do you mean the disease spreading in Astria lately? Rose replied, yes, I heard rumors about it at the market. People would collapse while walking and remain motionless. Even when they regained consciousness, they could only sit and seemed lost in thought. It's like a state of extreme laziness, which is why it's called that. Xian was shocked, and his mother asked, will Mary recover quickly or not? Rose said, from what I know, I haven't heard of anyone recovering from it yet because there's not enough information about the disease. Everyone was saddened by Mary's condition. Xian's father decided to take Mary to a doctor in Astria and told Xian to stay home with his mother. But Xian insisted on going with his father, saying, if you go alone, protecting Mary will be harder. If I come with you, it'll be better. His father eventually agreed, and they set off. Xian's father told him to take care of Mary, and Xian thought to himself that they would get married to Astria no matter what. Suddenly, Xian saw a red light he had seen before, and asked his father, what's that? His father replied that he didn't see anything. Xian realized, if you can't see it, then it must be magical energy. Then they saw wolves surrounding them. Xian's father identified them as blood wolves, saying they were always thirsty for human blood and would attack mercilessly. Xian told his father, you focus on the road and I'll handle them. His father warned him not to be reckless. Xian prepared his spells and started attacking the wolves one by one, but there were too many of them. His father fought them from the other side, but their numbers seemed endless. Xian tried to think of a solution, but suddenly, all the wolves fled, leaving him surprised. Strange winds began to blow. Xian's father asked, what's happening? Xian replied, something strange is coming. We need to run now. Then, a strange magical beast appeared, terrifying Xian. He told his father, look, but his father couldn't see anything, meaning it was a magical beast. Xian was shocked, wondering, is there really a beast like this? The beast let out a loud scream, and Xian started screaming too, terrified. His father asked, what's wrong? Xian replied, I can't believe you can't hear it, Dad. Xian tried to hit the beast with a magical spell, but the attack passed through it without causing any harm. The beast was about to attack Xian, who was extremely scared, but he remembered what happened with the goblin and tried to attack the beast in the same way. He managed to injure the beast, which started screaming. Xian's father didn't understand what was happening. Suddenly, the beast flew over the carriage, seemingly trying to attack Xian's father. However, the electric lamp near his father affected the beast. The beast tried to escape, but Xian jumped high and managed to strike it, defeating it. Xian was about to fall to the ground, but his father caught him and said, you're reckless as always. Xian apologized, but his father told him, don't apologize. We're safe now thanks to you. They got back into the carriage and continued their journey. Xian's father said, what was that strange beast? I've never seen anything like it before. Xian asked, were you able to see it? His father replied, yes, I saw it when it got close to me. Xian looked at the lamp, realizing it was the reason. His father said, we need to reach our destination quickly. There's no guarantee more monsters won't appear. When they arrived, they saw many people suffering from the same disease as Mary. When they asked a doctor to examine her, they were told they had to wait their turn. Xian was upset, saying, the monsters and rain delayed us. His father said they had no choice but to wait. When it was Mary's turn, the doctor examined her and confirmed it was the lethargy disease. He said there was no cure yet. Xian was shocked and asked the doctor, isn't it your job to heal her? The doctor apologized, explaining there was no solution yet. Xian was deeply affected, and his father tried to comfort him. Xian began recalling memories with his sister, feeling very sad. He became emotional, crying and saying, my sister is innocent and kind. She didn't do anything wrong. Why is this happening to her? The next day, they decided to leave Mary in Astria until they could find a cure for her. They placed her in a location that turned out to be owned by Grast. He was going to use it as a warehouse, but he would now leave it to them due to this emergency. Xian's parents thanked him. Grast was sad and said, I don't know why a good girl like Mary got this disease, but his words affected Mary's parents, and they were saddened, which made him apologize to them. Then he told them to use the place as they wished. Xian's father apologized profusely to Grast, and as Grast was leaving, he told him to make this the last apology and stop. Xian's father thanked him, and he left. After that, Rose also came to check on Mary, who was motionless. Xian sat beside his sister to reassure her. Then his father came to him and said, there's someone I want you to see. Xian asked, is this person a doctor? His father said, number. Xian said, then I won't go. His father asked, do you remember the monster you fought 4 days ago? Xian asked, has it been 4 days? His father said, yes, and many scattered incidents have occurred, and many people have died because of an invisible monster. It seems to be the same monster you killed, Xian. Now there are no guarantees that this won't happen again, and we were the only ones able to deal with this monster. Rather, you, Xian, are the one who has the ability to deal with this monster. Xian said, what's that to me? His father said, you have to understand me. The number of victims will increase, and many people will be harmed. Xian said, I will stay by my sister's side forever, because she is the one who matters to me. His father got angry and said, so you don't care if anyone else is killed? You are the only person who can help people and reduce the number of victims. Xian said, I don't care about that either. His father said, if the monster attacked our village and killed the people in it, would you say you don't care too? Xian got angry and said, yes, what's that to me? Why do I always have to do this and help people? All I want is to stay by my sister's side until I find a way to help her. Then he said to his father, aren't you worried about Mary? Don't you care about her? His father got angry and said, of course. I care about her and worry about her. She's my daughter, and I'll do anything to save her. even if it means I'll die, but there's nothing I can do now, and the only thing I can do is ask for your help to save people, because you're the only one who can do this. Xian was affected by his father's words and remembered his sister's words when she told him that magic could do many other things. She also said that there are things that no one but Xian can do, so when the time comes, Xian must help people. Then his father said, Mary always thought of people and didn't think of herself. She even always trained and exerted herself so she could protect me if anything happened. It seems that this is her nature. She always thinks of how to help people, and I'm sure that if she were with us now, she would tell me that I should help people and save them because I'm the only one who can do this. Then he turned to his father and said, I will help you, father, with what you need. His father thanked him and said, I'm sorry for asking this of you and burdening you with responsibility. Xian said, I'm the one who should thank you, father, for letting me come to terms with things. After that, Xian felt something strange. He felt like he would lose his sister, and he also felt that her magical energy was no longer present. He rushed down and asked his mother to take care of his sister and left the place. Then he went somewhere and said to himself, as I expected. After that, his father was with him in the place of the injured, and his father asked him, did you find out anything? Xian said, yes, all the injured don't have any magical energy, which means it was drained from them. I've been walking around the city a lot, and I haven't seen many people with magical energy, so I think that all the people who had a basis for magical energy are all those who have been afflicted with the lethargy disease. I don't think it happened by chance, and so far, no one has found a solution or cure for this disease, so I have to find out for myself. His father said, so it's as I expected. It's all related to the monster we saw and related to magic. Then he continued, I told you before that there's someone I want you to see. Let's go now. They actually reached the royal palace and met the Duke, whose sharp gaze terrified Xian. Xian's father apologized to the Duke and said, I'll get straight to the point, and spoke to him about the events taking place in the city. The Duke collapsed and began to writhe on the ground. Why does misfortune haunt me? And why did all this happen immediately after I took over this city? Xian was shocked by what he saw and by the Duke's reaction, but it seemed that Xian's father was used to this and showed no reaction. The Duke was still writhing on the ground, saying that he wanted to resign from his position. Xian's father tried to calm him down, but to no avail. After that, the Duke calmed down and sat on the chair and began to talk about the electric lamps that the guild wanted to monopolize because they were the means to confront the monsters. But the Duke and his men were able to collect and use them. Xian's father said to him, well done, you are still able to do these things. The Duke said, praise will not help at this time. He began to talk to Xian and said, your father told me everything, and that magic, the lethargy disease, is related to this monster. So I was thinking of gathering everyone who has a magical basis to be by your side so we can eliminate this monster. Xian said, I think this will be difficult and unhelpful, which shocked the Duke, and he said, why? Xian said, learning magic and magical spells is difficult and takes a lot of time. Secondly, almost everyone who has magical energy has been afflicted with the lethargy disease. The Duke said, the research on this disease is going very slowly, so I want to ask you, do you have any ideas, Xian? Xian said, yes, I do. The Duke asked, what is your idea? Xian said, I need to conduct tests on living creatures, which made the Duke astonished. Xian said, the people who had magical energy needed some time to recover and regain their magical energy, but those who were afflicted with the lethargy disease had their magical energy completely drained, and it seems that something is preventing it from returning. This means that if I could infuse them with magical energy and keep it in their bodies, it might cure them. The Duke then said, so your idea is to experiment with your magical energy on the afflicted, but wouldn't that be dangerous? And since you're the key to this, if you fail in your experiment, no one suffering from the lethargy disease will be cured. Xian was thinking about it and said, in medical matters there's no such thing as perfection, and I'll bear any scandal that may arise, but I must try to save the afflicted. Then Xian told the Duke that he would initially conduct tests on those who were about to die and on monsters. After that, we learned that the Duke agreed to all of Xian's requests, and also provided him with additional assistance, such as doctors capable of making medicines and dealing with monsters. Xian was walking with his father in the city thinking, if I were alone, the Duke wouldn't have given me all this. He was surprised and said, the Duke hasn't even seen magic. How did he agree? After that, we see Xian sitting with one of the doctor's assistants, whose name is Cole, and he says, for me, indulging the ideas of a rich kid like you is nothing but a waste of my time. But since it's an order from the Duke, I have no choice but to obey. That's all I want to tell you. Xian was smiling and didn't know what to say. Then we see a girl saying, your name is Cole? So you're infinitely rude, even when talking to a child, and saying, you only serve the Duke's orders, you should carry out your duties honestly. She introduced herself and said that her name was Ravina, and that she was the leader of the 75th Secret Squad of the Royal Guard for the city of Asteria. It seems that her words didn't please Cole, and he started to provoke her, which made her draw her sword and say that this sword was given to her by the Duke because of her efficiency. Of course, Xian didn't like this, and told her, you shouldn't draw your sword in a place like this, Captain. She apologized and sheathed her sword. There was a girl standing far away, and Xian asked her who she was. She seemed very shy and said that her name was Bridget, and that she came by order of the Duke as well. We learned that she was an expert in monster affairs and spoke in a very low voice. After that, Xian began to speak and said, I don't think at all that the mission we have now is just for fun. It's a very dangerous mission and depends on a very limited amount of information. After that, we see Xian standing outside with his team, showing off his magical abilities, which amazed them all. They were astonished and asking, what is this? Xian began to explain to them and say, natural phenomena can be amplified and exploited through magical energy. Cole said, so what we saw now is magic. Xian said, yes, but first, a person must have magical energy derived from their body, and using it excessively leads to extreme exhaustion and lethargy until you regain your magical energy again. Cole then said, this is similar to the symptoms of the lethargy disease. After that, they began to carry out their tasks and were walking in the forest. Ravina was facing great difficulty because of the weight of her armor. We learned that Cole went to the clinic to do some things, while Xian and the two girls went to the forest to conduct experiments on monsters. Ravina was very angry and said that they had set a trap for her, but of course, what she was in was because of her armor. After that, Bridget was talking to Xian and saying to him, I ordered research to be done on the invisible monster. What does this have to do with the lethargy disease? Xian said to her, it has to do with it. The thing is, magical energy can eliminate monsters, and I've tried this many times. That's why it will be very dangerous to test it on patients, because, as happened in the past, the interaction of magical energy with magical creatures and creatures that have magical energy will lead to burning them. Therefore, treating the lethargy disease using magical energy is still hypothetical because I will need to introduce magical energy into the bodies of the afflicted. To conduct research, we need to obtain monsters that have magical energy and conduct experiments on them to find a way that doesn't harm the afflicted. As for the monster you're responsible for, Bridget, it's called a wraith. Bridget got angry and said to him, have you seen it? What did it look like? Tell me. He said to her, calm down. My father has already submitted a report, and you were chosen because you're an expert in these matters. These words excited Bridget. After that, a warrior goblin suddenly appeared, shocking them all. They said, what brought him to this place? Bridget was very excited, while Ravina was very angry. She smashed her armor and immediately went to eliminate the goblin, saying, I'll show you my true strength. She jumped over the monster and began to attack. Xian was trying to help her and used his power, but he didn't hit the goblin. Instead, it hit his sword. There was dust in the place, which made Ravina unable to see the goblin, and it was able to attack her. She blocked it, but its strength was great, and it threw Ravina far away, hitting her into a tree. The goblin was about to finish her off, but Xian used his power and hit the goblin with a powerful spell. Then Ravina returned to the battle and killed the goblin, covering it with many stones, which shocked Xian. After that, Xian asked Ravina, have you seen a goblin like this before? She said to him, no, I've seen ordinary goblins, but this is a warrior goblin, and I haven't fought against one like this before. Then she said that fighting without armor would make eliminating these monsters much easier, but Xian didn't like it and said, if we kill all the monsters, we won't be able to conduct experiments on them. Ravina was very excited and said, let's continue our journey, making Xian think that she had forgotten the main purpose of the matter.